Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Middleton, and today I'm going to be talking to you about West Texas A&M's conduct policy and give you a quick analysis about it. West Texas A&M is a four-year public institution in the Texas Panhandle area, and they offer multiple levels of degrees with different options for those degrees. However, West Texas A&M is mostly an agricultural school, and it actually is listed as a Hispanic Serving Institution, or an HSI. So these conduct policies and the Clary report are very easily located. They can be found basically through the search option. However, since this is a conduct policy analysis, we went instantly to the student conduct page, and the Code of Student Life or the student handbook can be found from the student conduct page, which I think is great. It also has communication and links to the Clary report so that it can be easily tracked and information can be given exactly how it needs to be done. So let's talk about some elements that WT's conduct process is unique. Number one, let's talk about their jurisdiction. At WT, Student Conduct Office has elected um, to proceed with violations of federal, state, local laws, as well as WT rules and procedures. And this is mostly, I believe, done because if there is an incident that happens off campus that is related to something that could be detrimental to a student on campus, then WT feels that they should adjudicate that case as well to better help the student and or remove the student if necessary. Another element is their take on paraphernalia. This could be drug or alcohol paraphernalia, but at the end of the day, it is not allowed. Empty beer bottles, beer decorations, beer posters. As it relates to marijuana, this could be a decorative grinder, but also never been used. It doesn't have anything in it. Those are all still prohibited items, and if found, can be confiscated, and then the student would be put through the student conduct process. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about due process and some elements that I think are important for WT. WT provides students with a path that promotes both due process as well as equality, both and fairness. And what I mean by that is, as soon as an incident report is received, a student receives an initial inquiry notice, and this notice talks about the incident report that was received, any potential charge that come from that. It talks about the student's rights and responsibilities as it relates to the student conduct process. It gives them notice of an advisor and a list of advisors to choose from if they don't want to bring their own. And it also gives them a breakdown of the entire student conduct process from start to finish, as well as if you appeal, what that process looks like. So one thing I think is unique but also concerning is WT really doesn't take into consideration the motives behind the student's infraction. Okay, why did the student break this rule? I think it's important to know because a motive determines the outcome, in my opinion. You don't want to give someone a hefty fine when they were doing the right thing and may have just gone about it the wrong way. There could be a different learning method for that. As it relates to due process, the standard of evidence used by West Texas A&M is the preponderance of evidence, which is the lowest tier standard of evidence or burden of proof. However, most institutions across the nation use this version. So let's switch over to Clary for a second and let's talk about some informative elements. Some statistics that are included in the report are a result of both criminal activity as well as student conduct related violations. And I think this is unique because, for example, a student who is underage and found drinking on campus, a UPD or University Police Department is called and the officer comes out. The officer decides not to issue a citation to the student. However, the student is written up and put through the conduct process. Because the student is underage, that is technically a liquor law violation, and therefore that stat is considered in Clary. And so it's unique that those numbers are taken into consideration and put in the report. Another thing that is unique to WT is their requirement of the 3 years of statistics. This is good to show the trends that are happening across campus as it relates to crime. This could be trends of alcohol cases, drug cases, sexual assault cases that happen. Are they trending up, trending down? It really helps the student make a decision. As it relates to victim resources, WT does a really good job in their Clary report of giving victims all the help that they can. First, it goes with mentioning and relaying information to on-campus resources for victims. And then right underneath that, it talks about local and regional resources for victims in case the student is not comfortable having these resources on campus with them. And then secondly, it goes on to give tips about how to prepare yourself in casual situations to make sure that you aren't victimized in the future. So I think that this is a really great job put on by WT. So a program that the Student Conduct Office does that I think is very unique is called Hazing in the Dark. And this program is literally meant to talk about hazing, to teach about hazing, and to discuss it in a safe environment. So part one of this program is reserved for only incoming freshmen and talks about what hazing is, what it looks like, what can be done, how to report it. And it really teaches these freshmen and students who haven't had a college experience that hazing is not okay, but how you can eventually report it. Part two talks about the group, right? So all students are allowed to show up because then they can talk about how they were hazed or what they thought was hazing and get clarification. And then more importantly, overall, students can have a better understanding of where hazing occurs, the consistency about it, or what it could look like, and ask questions of advisors, Greek life members, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, some evolving issues that I think are important to note. Title IX infractions at West Texas A&M still use the same standard of proof, which is the preponderance of evidence. Okay, this is unique because Title IX infractions could be faculty and staff involved, and the way the Texas A&M system works is if a violation of a Texas A&M system Title IX policy happens between a faculty member or a staff member and a student, if found responsible, that faculty or staff member is automatically terminated. And this is with a low level of proof, right? So if it's more likely than not to have occurred, and I think that this is just not right, it is evolving issue because with no proof or with no high level of proof, someone can still be found responsible, and that's not really okay. Another evolving issue is the policy that was created for COVID, which was the noncompliance or failure to comply policy. It has procedural steps, and I think that this is great. This did not bog down the conduct system, and it allowed for the students and faculty and staff to work out potential mask issues or COVID violation issues before putting the student through conduct. So what are some of the things that I learned and I think are important? You know, depending upon the infraction, preponderance of evidence just is not a good enough standard. There are some things where clear and convincing evidence is important to have. I personally am a student conduct practitioner, and I will not ever use preponderance of evidence. I'll always make sure I have enough evidence before giving out a sanction or a responsible charge. Student conduct work involves a lot of mental stability, and it's very weighing. And so students come into the office, you know, at negative, potentially in negative situations, and that could be hurtful. And so there needs to be some training with that. And finally, some other training things would be interview techniques, burnout prevention, restorative justice training, and debrief techniques. All of these will help a student conduct professional be their very best in this profession, and more importantly, prevent burnout and changing a profession. I'm sorry I flew through that, but again, I hope that you have enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.